Welcome to the ultimate guide to pursuing law. My name is Eloise. I am an admissions tutor here with the Profs. I specialise in law undergraduate admissions. I'm also a qualified solicitor. I studied law at Cambridge. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time studying law and also practicing law. So I'm going to tell you today about the routes into law, which kind of route might be best for you, and we're going to explore some of the skills and preferences that you might have as you pursue these routes. So as an overview of the legal system in the UK or in England and Wales, we have two main routes that you might consider. We've got the solicitor route and the barrister route. And we'll go into a little bit more detail as we go through this video about what each of those involves and who might be suited best to them. But just to give you a broad sense of the division between these routes, this is mainly a historical feature of the English legal system. This does not exist in all countries. Some countries just have a singular route for training to be a lawyer, and you would have both of the skills of the solicitor and the barrister combined. Other countries have this division, and again in the UK or in England and Wales, we have separate qualification routes for solicitor and barrister, although it doesn't mean that you couldn't do both. When it comes to who is best placed to practice law, there are just so many different types of law that it really could, there could be a place for any type of personality or preference in the legal profession. I would say some consistent themes, and we'll go into these in a bit more detail as we move through the video, but some consistent ideas would be someone who has a love of reading and words and analysis. This is really fundamental to pretty much any part of law because a lot of what you work with is written words, so the law itself, and also analysis of language, and for the barrister route, ability to articulate that in your own words. So I would say a love of language is a really central theme. Another one might be interpretation. So a lot of our role as a lawyer is about how the law is interpreting or evolving to fit new scenarios and things that are happening right now. So new business transactions or new situations in life, like how does the law apply to things as they change over time? And this type of sort of problem solving, but also creative interpretation and ability to apply the theory to the practice, this is pretty central to your role as a lawyer. So let's look at an overview of the legal profession. Now, I'm going to give you a few different routes that are the most traditional ones into law, but this is by no means a fully comprehensive list of the ways that you could become a lawyer. So please do your own research and your own analysis of what route is correct for you. Let's start by looking at maybe the most traditional route, and this is from your A-level studies, choosing to study law at university. So the way that you would do this, and we have lots of other videos on studying law. If you want to study law at Cambridge, Oxford, LSE, we have a video for you specifically. But in a kind of overview sense, this route would be studying your A-levels, then applying to study law at university. So this would involve doing the LNAT, which is the legal admissions test. Studying law for 3 years normally, maybe 4 if you did a master's. Some people do an extra year of study. And then applying to become either a solicitor or a barrister after that. Now, most law students will start with a period of work experience, and these are sometimes called vacation schemes for solicitors or mini pupilages for barristers, sort of a work experience placement where you get a feel for the profession without fully being locked into a job contract. A lot of these opportunities will be paid, and they tend to kick off in your second year of study if you are a law student. So your first year, you might just be getting to grips with university study and kind of like your first year exams and finding out more about professions and different options. The second year is when you'll normally be starting to do your work experience placements. So this would be normally the summer of your second year of university. You would start to do your vacation schemes. And it is possible that you would be offered a job at that point if you're a law student. It's possible that you then hold that offer of the job until your final year, until you get your final year degree results. And then your firm supports you all the way through your training process to becoming a solicitor. This is maybe the most efficient or the most supported way of becoming a solicitor. Similarly, for barristers, you can get some experience in while you're still studying. So aspiring barristers might take small amounts of work experience with a chambers or shadowing a particular barrister and getting experience in different fields. So this used to be something called the LPC, which stands for Legal Practice Course, and this was the practical qualification that would enable you to transition from your academic law degree into the actual practice of law. This was a 1-year course often supported by your firm if you already had a training contract, or you could also pay for it yourself. These days, the route has changed, although there's some still phasing out of the LPC route, so that may still be relevant to you. For most people coming into the profession today, instead of the LPC, you'll be doing something called the SQE, which stands for Solicitors Qualifying Examination. So the SQE is in two main parts, SQE1 and SQE2. Some people also have an SQE preparation course before they enter the SQE training period. And these are basically practical exams that will test your ability and aptitude as a potential solicitor. So in terms of comparison to the LPC content, fairly similar sorts of content or sorts of themes, a little bit more practical in their assessments. And unfortunately, people do report that the SQE is quite a lot harder than the LPC route. Alongside the SQE, you will also be doing qualifying work experience, which is now known as qualifying work experience and was previously called your training contract. So this is the period of training that you do with your firm if you have a job offer at your firm. The qualifying work experience and the training contract still have similar structures. So you'll be normally spending 6 months in 4 different departments each over a 2-year period. Some firms do structure this a little bit differently. Some firms offer periods abroad, so you can do 6 months in a different office. You could do 6 months on secondment, which means working with the client. But ultimately, it's going to be these 6-month periods of switching different departments. And this really enables you to learn a little bit more about law and about which area you might want to qualify into. There is also a course called the PSC, which is the Professional Skills course. And this basically equips you with very practical and professional skills. A lot of firms actually, if you're with a firm for your qualifying work experience, a lot of firms will offer this as part of the training, so it'll be integrated into your practical application of law. At the end of this period, you are eligible to be a qualified solicitor if you pass all of your exams and relevant assessments. This does not mean necessarily that you will immediately be given a job at the firm that you did your work experience, your qualifying work experience with. It kind of just depends whether they have any availability in your particular area of law or if they're willing to take you on as a qualified solicitor. A lot of people do change firms at this point. So while it is the most common experience to do your qualifying work experience and then qualify into the firm with which you trained, it's not necessarily the only way to do it. If you are a non-law student who wants to become a lawyer in that way, you can pretty much follow exactly the same route, but you will have an extra year doing the law conversion course. So this enables you to switch your law degree. So this enables you to switch your non-law degree into a law degree, and then you follow the same steps. We have a separate video on the apprenticeship route, so please do go and check that out. But essentially this enables you to kind of bypass this system and get your degree through the apprenticeship, which means that you will be earning from day one typically. And at the end, you will follow the same process as the SQE students, although you will have come in through the degree apprenticeship route. So you kind of end up in the same place, but you go almost like in a different route to get there, and you will end up with a degree and you will be eligible to become a qualified solicitor. To become a barrister, you would traditionally take the bar course, followed by pupillage, which is a training process, normally 12 months, and then you would be eligible to become a barrister. If you have done a law degree, you can go straight into that process. If you have done a non-law degree, the same process applies as for a solicitor. So you would take the conversion course first, and then you would follow the same route. In terms of the degree apprenticeship route for barristers, this standard has currently been approved by the regulatory body for barristers. However, there are currently no degree apprenticeship routes available for barristers. It might be something that becomes available in future, so it's definitely worth keeping an eye on if you're someone who would like to become a barrister in the future. Now, one of the reasons actually why solicitor apprenticeships are so much easier to facilitate than barrister apprenticeships is because of the difference between employment as a solicitor and a barrister. When you are a solicitor, you are employed by the firm, so you basically work for the firm as if you were working for any other company, management or finance. As a barrister, you are ultimately self-employed, even if you do work within a specific chambers or with a particular team. So you can see the difference there between the apprenticeship route is very much sponsored or organised by the firms that are supporting people through their development. And then at the end, they will normally employ those people. Whereas for the barrister route, you can see like it could be a little bit more tricky to find the sponsors or the people who will see you through that programme to ultimately then become self-employed. In terms of the skills and preferences that you might need to become a lawyer, we do have a separate video on commercial law. So if that's something you're particularly interested in, please head over there where we talk about all of the skills and the abilities that you might need to do that field of law. In general, though, I think things like a love of analysis and interpretation is really important. A love of working with words, of reading, of interpreting, of problem solving. These are very important processes as well. For most lawyers, it will be important to be able to work with a team. So communication and teamwork is kind of a fundamental part of law. Especially on the solicitor side, it will be important to be able to work with a team. So often you'll be working with big teams, especially if you go into a big commercial or corporate law firm. On the barrister side, the work can be a little bit more self-focused. So you might be working a lot more just on your own work rather than working with, 10 people on a project. However, it is ultimately still a very client-focused profession. So the client is the person that you are responsible to. You help them develop their narrative or help them solve their legal problem. And this is essentially the interaction between the lawyer and the client. It's always very communication-based. The route to becoming a lawyer for pretty much anyone, so any of these legal routes, is hard, difficult, quite academic, very demanding. So it's well suited to someone who has a lot of resilience, motivation, a genuine passion for law, and really an understanding of the legal process and what this requires. So one thing that people often talk about is how difficult things are, like whether being a solicitor is more difficult than a barrister or vice versa, or, the judicial side of the profession as well. Like, what is the hardest part or the easiest part? I think, again, it depends on your particular position within the profession. Some firms will be more demanding of your time and resources and energy than others. Some firms will be more fast-paced or dynamic. They'll sometimes require you to work internationally. So it really depends on the type of law that you go into and the particular firm. If I were to make a very broad comparison, I would say that being a solicitor might be more practically challenging. So there's a lot of just like fast moving pieces, a lot of workload, like deadlines, things like that, high demands on your time. On the other hand, I think being a barrister could be more technically demanding. So barristers, a lot of the time, will really go into the detail, the technicalities, and the academic side of the law. So if you're someone who really loves working with like the theory of law, that might be a side of the profession to explore. So what is the future of law and of these two professions? We talked a little bit in the commercial law video about the use of AI and technology for a commercial lawyer, and that does apply to pretty much all parts of the legal profession as well. So AI is going to be a really big tool in terms of research, in terms of diligence, in terms of checking documents, and maybe even helping with things like drafting or generating standard legal forms. I personally don't think the role of the lawyer could be replaced by technology in terms of the ability that you have to work with the client to understand their problems and their issues and to provide a strategic, creative solution to a problem. I remember also the role of the lawyer with the client, regardless of what type of law you're in, is a very person-focused role. So you do often become a central person on that client's team, whether you're working in criminal law or whether you're working in property law, finance law, or any other part of the legal profession. Like the interaction, the human interaction that you have with the other people in your team and with the client is really fundamental to the job that you do. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please do leave a like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section below and we will try and get back to you as quickly as possible. If you have a friend who would benefit from this video, please do send it along to them. And if you would like any support or assistance during your application journey, please do get in touch using the information on screen now. We have a whole team of consultants here at the Profs who are extremely experienced in every single aspect of the admissions journey. And as always, best of luck with your applications.